I'm here today with my dear friend, Vernon Schmidt, who is 96 years old. And Vernon, how long have you lived in the town of Blanco, in the community?
All my life.
All your life. Where were you born at?
Up on Crabapple Creek.
And did you have a farm up there, your family?
Yes, we had 265 acres, I think. About 65 in farm.
Did you have any other siblings? Do you have a brother or a sister?
I have a sister.
How old is your sister?
9 years younger, whatever that makes it.
She's about 9 years younger than you?
Yes.
So longevity runs in your family, living a long life. When you started working on the farm, about how young do you think you were?
Well, as quick as I was big enough to get out there and pull weeds.
Vernon, anybody in Blanco notices that if they hear the name Vernon Schmidt, they know that you're very famous for something, and that's called your woodworking skills. You seem to have a major gift from God. When did you get interested in working with wood?
Well, I guess really when I moved here to town and got started in the cabinet shop.
So you got it to where you were doing it as your job. Where was that shop located at in Blanco?
On 281 up north, a little bit north of town.
I think is that around near the Masonic Lodge that's right there now?
Yes.
How did you go there to get work? Was it just looking to what you could find, or you went there?
Well, I didn't go there. A boy that I grew up with was a contractor at that time, building the locker plant.
Over at?
Over Singleton.
Singleton's.
And I had to have a job. I was working on my shop, my garage, but then I had to have a job, so I asked him whether he needed a hand. And that's where I got 3 days over at the locker plant, and then mostly in the shop.
So that we're clear of everything, you had already met your dear wife, Hilda.
Oh, sure, we were married.
How many years by then? Just a couple of years?
I guess.
Okay.
It was more a couple because we had 2 children.
So you already had 2 children. You have your 2 daughters, Doris and Joyce, right?
Yes, I
Okay.
guess.
All right.
I just don't.
When you went into the shop to start working and you started making cabinets, did you have an idea how to do it, or the boss said do it and you started working on it?
Well, I got the hang of it real quick.
And people have said that you're very precise about the way you like to have something measured. Could you tell me about how that is and why?
Well, one reason, my boss used a folding wood stick, that fold ruler, and I used the steel tape that I carried in my pocket.
Right.
And after he measured the cabinet and didn't come out like I measured it, well then, from then on, I wanted to measure my own cabinet before taking a picture of them.
So is it fair to say that the boss learned pretty quick that you definitely knew what you were doing?
Well, I don't know about that, but I done it the way I wanted to do it.
Did you go out to the homes and measure the cabinets, or did you tell them?
Yes, wherever houses were built.
What were some of the cabinets like? Can you remember?
Well, I got one right here.
So you made your own kitchen cabinets in your home here?
The ones down at Doris's house, I guess I put them in.
But how long would it take you to make a set of cabinets for a kitchen?
Well, that all depended how many corners there was, how many drawers they had to have.
Was there a time when you were working in the shop that the boss was wanting to get things done awfully fast? That you can remember?
He was a contractor.
Okay. Did anything particularly happen when he was pushing one day for fast work?
Well, told me several times I was too slow. I says, anytime you want to find somebody else, well, that's fine. But if I can't do it right, I don't want to do it.
Have you ever had anything of an injury happen to you during your woodworking time?
Well, I've had tips of my fingers gone. And
Really?
different things.
When you lost those 2 fingers, were you at the cabinet shop or was that here
Yeah.
at your business?
No, it was up at the cabinet shop.
Well, it's a silly question, Vernon, but did it hurt?
Not then.
Not then.
Well, it's a slip and went down. And I'd done that away and it's gone. So I just grabbed him. Right at then it didn't hurt, but it did later.
The way you grabbed your wrist, can you tell me about that story? Because you had to go from the shop to the hospital, correct?
Yes, I went from Planter, he was up at the other end, and the telephone was down on that end. So I grabbed it, but it's bleeding. And I had an old rag that I wrapped around it. But they could trail me where I went to telephone, called the lumber yard, had a friend there to take me to town. And when I got to town, the doctor had another patient, but he quit that and put me on and told me to turn loose, and I couldn't. They had to pry my fingers apart, him and the nurse.
So that was what we might call a death grip. You knew that if you didn't do that, you might...
I was holding it tight.
And you were holding it tight. What made you leave the shop, Vernon?
Well, first, everything was fine. And we had a lot of business. And I could order plywood. The salesman would come around. Most of the time I'd get around 30 sheets at a time. And it got down to where he bought a little ranch and put him in a tight. So that put the shop in a tight. So when I needed some plywood, well, it had to be cash. And I got tired of it.
Did he pay you really well, or were you working at a minimum wage situation?
No, I wasn't getting minimum wage.
You were not being paid minimum wage?
No. I grew up with a boy and I had to have a job, so
you took what was there?
my daddy always says, if you can't get a big price, you work for what you can get. That's what I did.
That's right. So when you left the shop, you already had your garage built here, correct?
No.
Not yet?
No.
Okay, so what happened when you left the shop?
Well, I rented a house, started work on my shop.
Okay. And how fast, from the time that you went into your own business of making cabinets, could you say that you saw a big difference in the increase in what you made from the shop compared to what you made here at your own business?
Well, it's just so much handier here. I charge the same price as we charged up there.
You never changed that?
No, I went by what we were charging up there. But here it was handy. I didn't have to, at noontime, somebody come want to pick up the stuff, have to quit my lunch to go up there.
Yeah.
Here I could just run out to the shop and if I wanted something, it's handy. I can get my cup of coffee or whatever, snack between meals.
Did you do more than just cabinet work? Did you do some furniture work?
Lots of furniture.
Well, like what would you do to the furniture?
Well, we had Mr. and Mrs. Dale, they'd always take a trip and they would pick up second-hand furniture and bring it back, broken down. I'd have to fix it. And after I got to doing that, why, he told me several times, why don't you and Hilda get a pickup and go traveling? You know what you can fix up. But I didn't have the money to do that.
So you stayed here?
So I stayed here. And they brought me in chairs that didn't have the caning that I had to repair. And
how'd you know how to do that?
they had a blind, they'd taken it to Austin then after I fixed it and had it caned down there. They said the blind people done it. I says, if they can do it, I can. That's
Very good.
where I got started.
So I think it'd be a fair statement to say that there was not really any challenge when it came to woodworking that you were afraid to tackle.
No.
Do you have a lot of plans in your mind about things that you would like to make?
Oh, every once in a while I see a picture I'd like to copy, but
Is there something that you've seen in the past that you really would have liked to have had a chance to make?
well, at one time I had a little rocker, which daughter's sitting on now
Uh-huh.
in the shop, similar to it, and it fell all to pieces when I taken the canning out. So I glued it back together, and Hilda said, "Well, I'd like to have a little chair like that." I put the caning in and everything. So I went to the barn, found enough walnut to make a little chair, and that's what I got now.
And your wood that you use, where does your wood come from?
Well, most of it from Allen, San Antonio.
But do you have people that bring you wood from other parts of the country?
Well, now, since I've been in my shop here, well, I've had some from Minnesota, butternut,
Uh-huh.
and they don't know what it is around here.
Why is that?
Well, I guess it's just not popular.
Right.
And friends from there came down looking for a place, and they bought in Kerrville, but some of our dancing couples. And every once in a while he goes back and brings me a small pieces of wood that he can put in the back of the car.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I made my canes out of now, and a lot of my plaques.
Mm-hmm.
But last time he says his son is doing some of that business now too, making stuff. Didn't know where they could bring me anymore. They cut down a tree in '72, and him and another neighbor sawed it up into boards and just rough cut. But the neighbor didn't want any then, after later, so he ate it all. So that's just rough lumber, but I can plane it up, make it nice and smooth.
We're going to talk about it in a minute. I understand you've made something very special here recently, haven't you?
Well, I guess it'd be that courthouse.
You made a replica of the Blanco courthouse?
Well, sure.
Well, Vernon, what made you do that?
Well, it's sitting there, and I'm getting so much stuff on hand that I just thought let's go play.
So when you're making the courthouse, did you have memories about what things used to be like back then?
Yes. 2 daughters were born there.
Do you know which part of the courthouse?
Yes. And before that, well, I went with my daddy to the bank there.
There was a bank in the courthouse?
Yes, at one time there was a bank.
Okay. And today, there's no letters on the courthouse that say bank, is there?
Still would like to know where they went.
It's a mystery, but we're hunting for them, aren't we? Now, you've made already one courthouse, and you've made a second courthouse. Is that correct?
Yes.
Why did you make a second courthouse, Vernon?
Because I wanted it a little smaller.
You wanted it a little smaller. And the average number of pieces of wood that are in these courthouses is about what?
Around 2,300.
2,300 pieces of wood.
Less or more. I
And
lost track of the last.
they're
Wow.
all hand sanded. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So it'd be a fair statement to say your hands hurt at night a little bit.
Yes, they give out.
Before you started, after you and Hilda got married, how did you start out making a living before you were really into the woodworking business?
Well, I got different ranch jobs, and then from there I went to San Marcos when they were building the airport there, and poured concrete first, and then they put me on a machine,
What type of machine?
them trench diggers,
Uh-huh.
where the sides of the runway that was sloped, and I run that. The next thing they take me off of the machine, and put me out there telling them others what to do, and I did not like it.
Why not?
Well, I'd rather be working than standing
being the
there and
boss.
watching somebody else and have to fuss at them.
Have you and Hilda done some hard work in your lives, would you say?
Maybe we have.
What are some of those things you've done?
On the farm, well, we had to pull weeds and get out there and make fodder, and pick cotton,
Pick cotton.
and times when we wanted fresh molasses, we had to strip our cane
Uh-huh.
and cut it off at the bottom and tie it in little bunches and haul it to the press.
When you would come to Blanco, what was it usually for, to come to Blanco?
I might get a few groceries.
Okay. Can you recall a time, you know, there's stories, and of course it's fact, that Blanco had a big fire. Can you recall that?
Yes.
What, can you tell me about that?
Well, one night we was at home and all at once looking this way, it just was all red. And then afterwards we found out it was a fire.
And what part of Blanco do you remember it was that burned?
Well, the first one was from 3rd Street halfway up to 4th Street to the Masonic Building.
Which was where the cabinet shop was?
No, the cabinet shop was
Further.
further up,
Okay.
up the road. And
And the second fire?
second fire was on the north side, I guess they call it now. And
Over by what would be the blacksmith shop?
it used to be an old blacksmith shop there at the corner where the bank is now.
Uh-huh.
And then the confectionery, and then there was a car dealer, and then the hardware where the pottery shop is.
Did you ever do any work inside the courthouse? Carpenter work? Woodwork?
Yes, at one time somebody tore down the stairs on the west, whatever, it's facing this way.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody else got a hold of it and they wanted it put back. And that's was my job
Was it hard?
when I was working at the cabinet shop.
So you were working at the cabinet shop,
Yeah,
and then you'd go over and you'd work on the courthouse to fix the railing.
yes.
How hard was that railing to fix?
Well, it wasn't very easy.
Why?
Well, you had to get all them fancy cuts on there. It was sloped in like that around, and then a round part over there. And that had to all be cut. And then upstairs where it made a L-shaped turn, it had to be pretty accurate to fit.
And you hand sanded all of that?
Partly I probably had a machine or hand sander, but a lot of it had hand sanding.
And that's the rail that still stands today.
I haven't been in there lately. I don't know what it looks like now.
Did you sign your name to it?
No,
Because you're known for signing your name to your work.
I wish I had.
Yes.
I do now, but
Well, the good thing is about this now is that we all know that you did that railing. I had asked you earlier, Vernon, as I've learned a lot about you, you grew up during the Depression. Can you tell us what that was like?
well, we out there on the farm we had to raise our own, mostly beans, different kind of beans, and corn we had, ground it into cornmeal, and we had our hogs for meat. And once in a while somebody come along, peddle a calf out, and we'd have some of that, and our chickens.
Did it seem as if you went without or not?
No, I don't think we went without.
Okay.
We always had
You worked the land.
cornbread, beans, and
You
our
lived off,
gardens.
it's a fair statement to say you lived off the land.
Yeah.
That's a good statement. What part of the hog butchering did you get to do once you got a little bit bigger?
Well, I had to help start the fire under the kettle and all of that.
And what else?
Then, when I got bigger, well, when I was little, I was playing around scraping too. But when I got bigger, well, they gave me the butcher knife to stick 'em.
Were you afraid to do that the first time?
Well, maybe the first time, but
After that,
no.
not a problem.
No.
Because you knew that was going to be some good food.
Yes. Somebody else was right there with the pan. When I stuck it, that blood squirted out, and they'd catch the blood and keep it stirring it, keep it from getting still.
And why was the blood captured?
Well, we German people like blood sausage,
Blood sausage.
liver sausage, head cheese, everything in that head we use.
So
Tongue,
Nothing.
brain.
Yeah, nothing went with for waste.
No.
How did you meet your lovely wife, Hilda?
Well, me and another boy went dancing over at Stonewall, and that's where I met her, in dance hall.
Did you just know right away?
No.
Really? Well, how long did you date?
Well, I don't know. Just got friendly with her. Yeah.
Did you have a car?
Not at that time. I was still driving Daddy's car.
Okay.
And we didn't have a car for a long time. Everybody else did, but we had a horse and buggy. So,
How long did it take for you to get your car?
well, I guess just before we got married, Papa bought me a used coupe Chevrolet, and I didn't like it. And,
How come?
Well, it had an E-act in it, and it looked like them front wheels sticking out like that.
Uh-huh.
But it got me there,
It got you there.
and finally, I don't know how many years that them salesmen come. Well, my neighbor over here used, at first he wasn't, but then he was. He was dealing with a car dealership in New Braunfels, and he brought one up, and it was a nice car. So I didn't have the money, but then I went to the bank, and Mr. Posey, he had one that I asked whether I could get some money from the bank.
You asked Mr. Posey for some money.
Yes. And when he brought the car up, when I made the deal, it was just before, I drove it by there and told Mr. Posey to come look at it, that I was going to buy it.
Uh-huh.
He says, "Don't ask me, just go ahead and buy it and come in and tell me."
So you didn't have to go through, everybody just knew you, and they knew who to trust.
He just
Yes.
trusted me.
It was a different way of life. What's some of your best memories as a child of coming to the town of Blanco? Something you really enjoyed doing when you came to Blanco?
Well, I guess whenever I could, I'd come with Papa, and we'd go he'd generally go to the bank.
Uh-huh.
Just why, I don't know, but I guess he had to have some money or something. And I tail in behind. And on this side where the main street is, there was a little gate there. There used to be a fence around that old courthouse.
Wooden fence?
Well, it was cedar post and iron pipes run through it.
Right.
So that's the reason I put that little sketch on out there to give you an idea. And there's a well right there. We generally get drink.
How good was that water?
It was good.
And cold?
Cold.
Now, the well, do you remember how long it was there, or just one day it was gone, or what?
Well, it was there a long time, but I don't know what went with it. After they tore the fence down, done away with the well.
Mm-hmm.
So I just know where it's at.
Did Blanco seem to grow fast or just kind of at a slow pace?
Oh, it was slow then. What did I remember?
Now, Vernon, did you serve in the military?
No, but they had me all ready to go. Had all my papers ready. And when I was working on ranch at Little Blanco, Colonel Horton had it. And one morning he come out there, he was out, and says he needed me more out there than they needed me over there.
That's right. It's a fair statement to say that the men that stayed at home did as much here at home as the men that went overseas. Good men like you.
I was taking care of me and another feller, taking care of 2,300 acres there.
2,300 acres. You and
The
one other
other
man?
boy had the ranch part, and I had the farming. Of course, the deer and the coons would eat up your corn nearly as fast as they'd grow.
Vernon, what do you think of the way Blanco is now? The way things have grown and changed? How do you feel about things now in Blanco at 96?
Well, it's just, I don't know.
Do you like it?
All these new people coming in, they're just taking over.
What do you think about the way that you would work with machinery versus the way things have changed so much, the technology? How do you feel about that?
Oh, that's wonderful.
You think it's a good thing?
What all they're doing, but I think some of these kids, not that I'm wishing hard luck, but I wish they had to do what I did. It'd be an education.
Why do you think that?
Well, they don't know how to milk a cow
No, they don't.
and feed the chickens,
No, they
and
don't.
gather the eggs, milk the cows, make butter.
Have you passed any of your woodworking gifts on to your family?
Well, I imagine I've given stuff away, but
Do you have a child, a daughter or two that does woodwork?
yes, they used to come down to shop when I had to shop from school.
Both the girls?
Both of them.
Uh-huh.
And they always said, I like that smell of the wood. So, after got down here, when they got married, moved back from San Antonio up here, Doris started making yard work ornaments. So, she was making big Santa Claus, and I always said that too big for me. I like little stuff.
At what age did you retire from the shop here?
When I turned, oh well, how many years was it when I was here? Left the shop and come down here.
But from this shop right here at home?
When I turned 80 here,
Well, when you turned 80, you retired.
I retired here.
That seemed like a good age to retire at?
Well, I thought it's time to quit. I wanted to play.
And play means to make all of the amazing things you've made.
Yeah.
Have you when Doris can make something pretty, is it a challenge for you to turn around then and make something pretty?
Well, sure.
Who makes it the best?
She does. Her crosses, I offered to help her cut some, but she insists she gonna do it, so.
So the master has passed on his talents.
Guess so.
Vernon, people that have lived a long life all have different thoughts about what they've done, how they view being able to live such a long life. What are some of the things that you've lived by in your life? I know one thing you say, but can you give me an idea about what you think helps you each day to live a long life?
Well, just do the best you can, day at a time.
Day at a time. One day at a time. And how old would you like to be?
Anytime.
Anytime.
When he called me, anytime.
Well, I think you've got a lot of woodworking left to do, don't you?
I got a lot of stuff out there I'd like to cut up, but probably won't.
Well, let's hope that you do.
I'll be cutting a day at a time.
Is there any advice that you would give for the future of Blanco? Anything you would advise that people could do in the way they live their life?
Yeah, I don't know.
What would you tell me?
Well, do the best you can, day at a time.
Couldn't be better advice. And you and Hilda still dance, don't you, Vernon?
Went last night.
Did you have a good time?
Well, we enjoyed being with the crowd that was there, but just a bunch of them wasn't there.
Is it harder to dance at 96 than it was when you first got married?
A whole lot slower.
But you can still dance.
Yeah. If
Well-
they wouldn't play so loud, and the polkas that they play, they're so fast. And I danced one waltz last night, but it was pretty fast. I had a new partner there, and a couple that came to the table, and started out not dancing a waltz, and that didn't work. I stopped a little bit, and I says, "Isn't this a waltz?" And she says, "I think so." So I started off, and away we went.
Well, Vernon, let me tell you something. You are, without a doubt, a true treasure of Blanco, Texas. You and Hilda and your children, Doris and Joyce.
Yeah.
And we treasure you, and it's a privilege to know you.
Nice to have a neighbor like you.
God bless you. Thank you, Vernon.
And fence went all the way around it. When I was heading Papa around, so we'd go in this door, and the bank was right there. And the two daughters, they was born on the bottom floor on this corner. And when I was in the hospital, I was over in this corner.
This is the first courthouse that you built, Vernon, right?
Yes.
Okay. What made you do this?
Well, I was getting too much stuff on hand that wasn't selling. I just wanted to play.
Yeah, but why the courthouse? What about the courthouse in particular?
Well, I just picked it.
Did it pose a challenge to you?
Well, yes, a little bit, but no problem.
Okay, and did we, if a person were to estimate, well, first of all, how long did it take you to make the courthouse? This one right here.
This one, about 4 months, of course. I was doing other things in with it,
Uh-huh.
but about 4 months.
Okay, and did we estimate, if we're just taking a wild guess, but roughly there could be about 2,300 pieces of wood in the big courthouse and the small one.
This one, they kept asking me, how many pieces in there? I said, I don't know. So I kind of kept count on that.
Okay, and what is the hardest part about having to build this, Vernon?
Well, it's just, you don't always turn out just like your mind got out.
Okay, so to build this, you really relied on your memory of the courthouse, correct?
Yeah.
You didn't go up and take any pictures of it.
No. I'd try by and look at it. And all the picture I had was that calendar.
You had the calendar. So
That's
to make
all
to
I-
make this and this one, this is what you worked with.
That one I just kind of knew what I was doing.
Right, you'd already gone through the hard part. What makes you proud about this?
Well, I'm just proud of what I done.
is an accomplishment.
Well, I don't think that too many would even try.
Okay. What type of tools did you use?
Mostly what I used was this little saw here, and because it's handy, and then my scroll saw. That's about 3 feet.
So Vernon, why don't you take a seat there and let's see where you're sitting at when you're working.
Compare.
So this is your place where you become an artist.
Well, my whole shop, I like it, but
How many hours a day do you think you spend out here?
well, some days all day, some days might be working in the garden a little, some days doctor appointments.
Why did you decide to build a second, smaller courthouse?
Well, one of the smaller ones. If I ever would live long enough, I'd make one smaller than that.
Well, I kind of think, when we started out and I saw that, you said you wouldn't live to maybe finish that one.
Yeah, well, you never know.
What did I tell you?
Day at a time.
Day at a time, day at a time. And you also made,
The little Blanco jail. Of course, the jail is out of rock, but I just made it, and this is not perfect because I had to cut this one down. And, but this will be my pattern if I make another one.
how old are some of your tools, Vernon?
One is real old.
Would you show us that one?
Opening the mess over there.
That's all right. And tell us about it, how you got it. And
Well, this is an old scroll saw.
it's an old scroll saw.
It was sitting on a shelf when I installed the cabinet. And I asked the fella working, he said, wore out. So I offered him $15, knocked off $15 on the cabinet, brought it home, taken it apart, and done a little screw adjustment. And that's where I started cutting on this one for a long time. But it's so unhandy to change the blade and that. So I went to San Antonio. The next one I bought was that one. And it's about wore out. So now I got this one.
Vernon, when you see a piece of wood, most of us would just think, put it in the fireplace. What do you see in a piece of wood?
Well, I always think I might want to use it.
It could make something pretty.
Yeah.
Is there any challenge that you think you could not meet in making something in wood?
I sure try.
Nothing you'd be afraid to try?
No.
Good. So I would say that we still have hopefully many more years to see some more things come from your talents.
Well, day at a time.
Vernon, if there was anything that you could, hang on a minute, if there was anything you could tell a young person that might want to get into woodworking, what advice would you give them?
Take your time and do it right.
Okay. Don't rush.
Don't rush.
What do you see do you see a younger generation hopefully continuing to do something like what you're doing, or is your talent a lost art?
That I don't know.
What do you hope for?
Well, I wish there was more of them to take up. Of course, it's not a money-making thing, what I'm doing here, because it takes too much time.
But what does it do for you? It doesn't make the money per se.
Just gives me the pleasure of doing
It
it.
gives you the pleasure of doing it. Yes. Did you tell me that at one time that the school had brought some students down and let them look at your work?
Yes, and I had the shop up yonder, why the ag teacher would bring a bunch of boys down, and I'd explain to them, but they wasn't, but just maybe 2 or 3 that was interested, and the rest of them would be running around in my shop. But if the ones that interested them was, I was glad to help them.
Okay. Vernon, why don't you describe what this is right here?
Well, just had a book, showed me a bunch of toys, and that's what I came up with. A little four-wheeler.
So it's fair to say that you can go everywhere from a very architectural courthouse to a Jeep and a trailer and a motorcycle and a bear.
Got a book that I've got a big farm tractor with all of his chisel plows.
Uh-huh.
One fella says, you make it and I'll buy it, but I haven't made it.
Well, that'd be another challenge, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But there's too many challenges.
So you like your
I
shop the
can't-
way it is, don't you?
I can't keep up with it. All I want to do.
Well, there it is that you still have so many ideas in your mind
Yeah.
and you still can't make them all.
All that cedar wood over there. Not going to get to use it?
Well, you don't know that, do you?
No, I don't. But
With the way that-
there's lots of pieces I can cut out of that.
With this smaller courthouse, do you hope someday to maybe see it shown off at the actual courthouse?
We'll see. If I can find a place to put it where I know it's safe, I'll find it. But take that little fence. It's just not sturdy. Some kid would come up there if it's out and over it.
But if this was enclosed in a glass case, it'd be just fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will keep it a while, but then,
Do we know what's going to happen with this one?
yes.
What's going to happen with this one?
My neighbor lady's going to do it.
And this neighbor lady has promised you that it will always, always stay in Blanco, Texas.
Yes.
Because Vernon is a part of Blanco, and it's a part of Blanco, isn't it?
I'm thankful that I'm here.
Yes. And is it fair to say that your talents are God-given?
Yes.
They are. And you thank Him for those, don't you?
I'm proud of it.
Good. We're proud of you, Vernon. Proud of you. Very proud. Half of Vernon Schmidt, and this is his glorious wife, Hilda, of almost 74 years. And Hilda has her own unique talents just as Vernon does. Hilda is a master at making a quilt, master at making wedding gowns. This particular quilt, what's the most special part about it, Hilda, for you?
Well, I don't know. I guess the one first prize at the fair.
And which fair would that be?
That was at Johnson City and in Fredericksburg.
And how long ago was that?
Gosh, I don't know. It's been a long time.
How did you come up with your pattern for the quilt?
Well, I don't know. I guess I saw a picture.
Okay. So,
But it was a very small one. They called it postage stamp quilt. And it was like this, but it was inch squares.
so from a very small picture, you made this.
Yes.
So you do almost a little bit of the same as Vernon does. You have a great mind that you can picture something.
Well, yes. Although, you know, that's not hard. It's just squares you put together.
How many quilts have you made?
Gosh, I don't know. One for all the grandchildren, and then I've got about 3 or 4 that need to be quilted.
And is there other sewing that you have done throughout the years?
Oh, yes. A lot of wedding dresses and all our sewing. I make his shirts, and I made him some suits.
And you've sewn for the community?
Yes.
Okay, so that's been your way of helping to bring money into the
Oh,
family.
yes.
Do you also like to dance as much as Vernon?
Oh, yes. You sure do.
Do you stay busy all day working on your machine?
When I'm not tired, when I'm not out of breath.
Okay.
Because I do have to lay down, because I'm short of breath now, because I have a heart problem, so.
Do you consider this a lost art?
Well, I think it's coming back some.
Good, good. How old is your machine, Hilda?
Since 56. Since 1956.
And it works like a charm?
It's so nice and quiet, I can't hardly tell it's going. It's a very good machine. When I oil it good and so I can't even, if I wouldn't see it, I wouldn't know whether it's gone or not.
What do you like the most about Blanco?
Well, I don't know, just nice people, nice place to live. And we're not crowded in here.
Good. What do you see the future of Blanco becoming?
Gosh, I don't know, I don't know.
What would you hope for?
I'm too far gone to worry about it.
What would you hope for?
Well, it would be nice if it would stay like it is, but we can't expect that.
Because that's the way life is. It keeps
That's
going.
right, that's right. Because things aren't the way, you know, when my parents grew up, things didn't stay like they were.
Well, Hilda, it is a pleasure sharing your beautiful work.
Well, thank you.
And it's more of a pleasure to just share conversation with
Well,
you.
thank you.
And we hope that you and Vernon have many, many more happy years of
Well,
dancing.
thank you, that would be nice.